Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2020 Candidate Forum for the 41st Legislative District. This event is presented by the Kiwanis Club of Issaquah, the Issaquah branch of the American Association of University Women, and the Issaquah Cable TV Commission. I'm Ann Francis Owen, and I'll moderate this forum with Connie Fletcher. Over the next hour, we'll hear from the 5 candidates running for office in the 41st District of the state legislature. This year, Mike Nickram and Lisa Wellman are running for the Senate. Tana Sen is running unopposed for House Position 1. Al Rosenthal and Milin Thai are running for House Position 2. Each candidate will start with a 20-minute statement, and then every opposed candidate will respond to questions. Those responses will last up to 1 minute. Candidates will see a yellow card after 30 seconds and a red card when no time remains. After the first candidate responds, the opposing candidate will respond, and then the first candidate will have another 30 seconds for rebuttal. For the last question, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to a question from the opposing candidate. Finally, each candidate, opposed or not, will have 1 minute for closing remarks. Going forward, we'll use only first names. Let's get started. Mike will give the first opening statement, followed by Lisa, Tana, Al, and Milin.
Sorry, so how much time do I have here?
You're starting with your 2-minute opening statement, please.
2 minutes? Okay.
Yes.
All right, thanks. Hi, my name is Mike Nickram, and as a way of introduction, I'd like to reminisce a little bit in 2003 when I was watching our older daughter graduate from the University of Washington. And on that fine June day, we're sitting up at Husky Stadium watching her, and Carla on that day became the 5th generation of women in our family to graduate from the University of Washington. And at the same time, she became the 7th member of our family to varsity letter and a varsity sport at the University of Washington. I come from a long legacy of Washingtonians. I've got a multi-great grandfather who fought in the Wisconsin 29th in the Civil War, helping to free a segment of our population from their slave masters in the South. He was, from what I heard, about this far from taking a couple mini balls, or I would not have been here to this day. He's buried in Gig Harbor, Washington. At the time, Lori and I, my wife, of now we're working on 42 years, had a construction company, which we still carry forward to this day. I'm a builder. I'm also a deep foundation piling contractor, and I've served on numerous boards and commissions around not only our state, but our nation. I've been a planning commissioner in the city of Kirkland. I sit on as a leadership council as Seattle's only representative to the National Association of Home Builders. I've also, a couple years ago, I got my 30-year pin at Kirkland Kiwanis. So been around for a while and plan on the future, and I hope to carry my experience, long-term business experience, very long-term family experience to help make this state a better place. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Lisa, do you want to give your 2-minute statement, please?
Thank you so much for inviting us here this evening. So 4 years ago, I used my Apple experience as a VP at Apple when I had a platform and I could go anywhere in the world and really help companies to bring new products to market that would start new businesses and help people who are already in business. And when this opportunity presented itself, I said, this is another platform, a place where I can make a difference in Washington State. And I hope and believe that I have. We've worked very hard the last 4 years at taking over the chairmanship of the Early Learning K-12 Senate Education Committee. We finally cleared McCleary after 10 years. We worked on and we passed a big comprehensive bill on school safety, and especially worked on SRO training. The police officers in our schools, making sure that if they're going to be in schools, although I would prefer to have counselors with the same amount of money, if they're going to be in schools, they should know de-escalation training, they should know what mental health looks like, etc. We passed and worked on mastery-based education, passed Keep Washington Working, talking about immigrants' role in our workplace, and also passed a bill to create or recreate the broadband office, which we had really not had for a number of years, and which I know from working across the state of Washington makes such a difference to all of us in terms of economic development and even telehealth. And now, of course, essential to education. I'm running for re-election to keep going with the transformation in our education system, working on mastery base, making sure that every kid moves forward with a path to a good paying job in a 21st century economy, not the industrial economy that we've built the school system for, but for the economy, the digital economy we now have. We also are looking at equity in education, and we see it really missing in broadband, where now connectivity is everything, where kids need devices, they need to be having a really rich learning environment as well as affordable broadband so that they can and members of their family can connect. We're working on our recovery economy and especially for small businesses who have really been left out of the economic package. So lots to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Al, do you want to speak next?
Hi, I'm Al Rosenthal. I'm running for the 41st, position number 2. I'm a retired Boeing structural engineer. The vast majority of my current income is from office and retail property that my wife and I own, which we've accumulated over a long period of time. I've been married to my wife, Wafa, who's immigrated from Egypt in the 1960s for 36 years. I'm running for office because I don't want to see the rest of the state of Washington become more unsafe like Seattle. I've run my life efficiently, and I believe I can help run the state efficiently. We're going to have to look hard at the state budget. From 1980 till present, per capita spending corrected for inflation, adjusted for inflation in the state of Washington is more than doubled. We definitely need to look at spending when it comes to the budget. I support the police, and I think the police as an institution are not racist, and the data proves it. Hopefully we talk about that later. The data why they are not racist is on my website. I'm endorsed both by the Northwest Vietnamese News, Kim Phan, and the American Coalition for Equality, Con Chu. The reason they endorsed me is that Mylan Tai supported I-1000, which discriminates based on race for admittance into Washington State universities, and Senate Bill 5395 and House Bill 2184, teaching sex education to K through 12 that is dictated by the state, not allowing it to be decided by school districts, where parents have a voice. I trust parents, not the state. Sex education is not an exact science like math and science and reading. What is taught should be up to the school districts, where parents have more say in the matter. In general, I believe in more local control of schools and communities. Just like you'd like your local town or city to control whether they have a marijuana shop or not, and not have the state dictate to the local town or city that they have to have marijuana shops. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mylan, would you want to go ahead?
Well, thank you for having me to present myself to the Issaquah constituent. For me, for years, I have referred to myself as an accidental politician. I came to this country at the age of 15 as a refugee from Vietnam in search for safety and opportunity. I understood at a very early age what it meant to work hard and fight for family and community. I understood that the system dictated my everyday life was not set up to benefit people like me. When I witnessed an undocumented student in my own kid's school district being denied an opportunity for education that they deserve, I decided to run for school board and to change the system, because I too do believe that it should be a local issue. It should be an opportunity of educating and education afforded to each and every single child who live on our land. I fought for students to be taught lesson plans that include their own communities and the history of their people. I fought for students with special needs to have access to learning environment that they can thrive in. I fought for school faculty to reflect the diversity of students that they taught. In the background, I'm a trained pharmacist, graduated from University of Washington. I also serve as an interpreter for other Vietnamese immigrants who needed basic services. In our district, we are so proud of the people who care for one another, who empathize with each other, and we value our community. And because of that, I believe that this fight is a fight for all of us. And when we come together and call this place home, we want to make sure that our home is thriving and each and every member of our family is supported. Thank you again, and I look forward for more conversation.
Thank you to each of you for introducing yourselves to our audience. Connie, please ask the first question.
I will read the question, and Mike will get a first chance to answer, then Lisa, and then Mike will be given a 30-second rebuttal. The second round will be Al, Milin, and then Al again for a 30-second rebuttal. So here's the question, and please let me know if you need me to restate this. The COVID-19 pandemic has left a $4.4 billion hole in the state budget. How should the legislature address this deficit? Are furloughs and layoffs in the cards for state employees? What services are you prepared to cut? Mike.
Question, right?
Pardon?
Correct? It's 1 minute for the answer, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'll answer that 1 minute. Well, unfortunately, Jay Inslee shut down the economy of our state to the worst level of any state in the Western United States. So he's caused economic havoc that we have seen nowheres. I see no layoffs. I see no salary cuts. Half my family are school teachers. I never get invited back to another family picnic if I start cutting their salaries. However, it's long overdue. We're going to have to follow Governor Scott Walker's format on getting a handle on a state budget. I could get into construction costs on highways, stormwater, school building, and I could spend the whole day talking about how much we overspent on that. But one thing I'll just notice in one point is on the public employees, their health care plan is only covered by 2 insurance companies versus the scores and scores that we have available. So I think we need a more competitive method open up to be able to get the services that our public employees need and lower the budget. And frankly, I wish Governor Inslee would follow a more progressive method of having businesses work through COVID. We can do it, and we can reduce COVID. I know, I'm a business owner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Lisa. Oops, you're muted. Lisa, you're muted.
Didn't realize I had to unmute myself. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Well, of course, we did do a 15% cut across the board of all state agencies and saw significant approval there, as well as we're able to see not only additional funds come in from the federal government, but then unexpectedly high returns on additional collections coming in. So our state budget actually looks a whole lot better than it did, as we now know, 4 weeks ago. And we're looking at, of course, because we are one of few states that have to look at a 4-year balanced budget, not just on a year by year or even on a 2-year basis. We look on a 4-year basis. Looking at the growth of the economy as well as the strength of our economy, my anticipation is it's not going to be at all challenging for us to meet our obligations as a state. And I think that there's much to be proud of in terms of the way we have so far handled this epidemic, which has been, unfortunately, at the federal level, been pretty much of a disaster in terms of the overall country. We're looking at very closely, because I'm constantly looking at school issues. Up now, talk later.
All right, thank you. Mike, you've got a 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, and especially I'd like to point out at the federal level, the chief executive relied on the governors to make good decisions. Unfortunately, our governor failed us seriously. Beyond just COVID, our state attorney general just lost the most expensive lawsuit in our state's history on stormwater requirements. We've got to get into a regulatory reform issue. We've got to get there quick. There's billions of dollars of building permits sitting, waiting to be updated. They need to be released immediately as a sales tax state. We get sales tax on all new construction, and we can get some funding moved into our state coffers quickly by just reducing regulations pronto.
Thank you. Okay, Al. Do you need me to read the question again?
Doesn't Lisa get it?
I wasn't prepared that it was going to be the same question. So what was that again? Yeah, read it again.
Yeah, the COVID-19 pandemic has left a $4.4 billion hole in the state budget. How should the legislature address this deficit? Are furloughs and layoffs in the cards for state employees? What services would you be prepared to cut?
Well, sounds like what Lisa Wellman had just said. They've done a 15% cut and things are in fairly decent shape now. Thankfully that we have a lot of tech companies that people weren't laid off, like in other places in the country where people were furloughed and are a lot worse off because of those layoffs. As far as schools go, we don't want to cut teacher salaries, but everybody always cries we don't want to reduce school spending. There's probably a majority of the money spent on schools is not teacher salaries. So we should look heavily if we need to cut. Is Lisa, you're saying that the majority is teacher spending? Really? I'd like to see those numbers. We should look at the non-teacher spending that's done, see if we can do things more efficiently. Basically, I'm more for cutting spending than raising taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mylene.
Thank you for the question. Really, to answer the question as succinct as possible, we as the state of Washington recognizing that our tax structure, our revenue structure for the state spending is regressive. We need to, this is the time that we need to work on restructure our revenue via tax structure. And I am committed to doing that work with the current leadership in Washington State Legislature. As far as cutting funding, I am not in support of cutting funding for public health, for social services, because if anything, we need to really recognize the people who have been working and serving as essential worker to uphold the economy and the safe way of life for many of us, including myself and my family, being able to stay at home and stay safe, are those who are working family. So I'm looking forward to make sure that we can change our tax structure and revenue and no cut.
Thank you. Al, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
I disagree with an income tax, and the voters have repeatedly said no, yet the legislatures think they know better than the people, and they keep trying to push an income tax. Basically, an income tax is what makes this state great. It makes it easier to bring people here to work. It makes it, salaries can be lower when you're not paying an income tax, unlike a high tax area like New York City, where the high city tax, state tax, makes it very prohibitive for businesses to move there. Although unfortunately this state and especially Seattle is moving towards a more unfriendly business attitude, and in the long term that's not going to be good for the state, and we'll have less raise, not more. And you know, I pay $125,000 a year in property tax. I consider that a pretty good contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will you get another chance to talk about taxes now, because the next question is on the tax structure. The tax system in the state of Washington is the most regressive in the country, according to the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy, with the poorest residents here paying nearly 6 times as much of their income in taxes as the wealthy. The study points out that the lack of a personal income tax and a high reliance on sales tax ensures that inequality will persist until changes are made. What are you prepared to support and vote for to rectify the inequality? Would you support an income tax or a capital gains tax? This time the order is Lisa, Mike, and then Lisa again for rebuttal. Lisa?
Yes. Well, we're certainly, I haven't heard anybody, certainly on the Democratic side, talking about income taxes. And in fact, I sit on the tax structure work group, which is a 4-year project to really look at all the taxes that we have on the books. You know, some of the taxes are out there for businesses or types of businesses that don't even exist anymore. So very definitely, we do have an unfair system, as you pointed out, with the numbers, the way that they're structured. It's just upside down. Those that can least afford to pay the most. And I think fundamentally, the great thing about the state is primarily from many of the businesses, what I've heard is we want to pay our fair share. Certainly, the Elder Gates was a marvelous gentleman who talked about that a lot. So I am for a capital gains tax, which I may have to pay some of. I was blown away. I can't imagine the amount of property that Al has that causes him $125,000 a year of property taxes. Wow, Al, you're in really great shape. I think that we have to look to be constantly progressive in our tax structure.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, thanks. I'm trying to cue up my timer. Well, the fact is, the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, which has been cited over and over again, is completely irrelevant. And frankly, it's a fake website. It is not peer reviewed. It has no performance. There's no raw data in it. The fact is, according to the Chamber of Commerce's and Standard & Poor's, which is a peer reviewed outfit, ranks the state of Washington as the 10th best in the nation. Now, the fake Institute in Taxation doesn't point out that when a high-paying new employee moves into our state, they pay almost the equivalent of their first year's wages to taxes to the state of Washington. The way it works, any real estate developer, any business owner, such as myself for 35 years, knows. You go out and buy a 7-figure home, the state gets 10% sales tax on that seven-figure home. That same person who's hired to work for a corporation, you have to build the manufacturing facility to support that person. Boom, once again, a 7-figure, 10% sales tax on that. So somebody coming into this state making $250,000 a year is going to be also bringing in a minimum of $200,000 as sales tax revenue with that person. Every business owner, every real estate owner, and every Chamber of Commerce knows this for a fact. So I like to work with Standard & Poor's for taxation. Good, solid, well-planned growth in the state is the way to increase tax revenues, not income tax, not any other taxes.
Thank you. Lisa, you've got 30 seconds to rebut.
Well, I absolutely do agree with Mike that we have an amazing state. Our state has been rated #1 in terms of a business environment and a strong economy, which is very diverse, more diverse than many others. In fact, we're one of a few states in the country where Walmart is not the #1 employer of the state. It's true. I do, however, think that they're totally different. The organization for tax that you mentioned, I forgot the name of it, is not the same. It's a totally different structure than Standard & Poor's. They're looking at two separately, completely different things.
Thank you.
It's economy. It's
Okay.
tax.
Mylene, would you like me to repeat the question, or have you got it?
I got it. Thank you,
Okay,
Connie.
thanks.
So as we know, income tax in Washington state is unconstitutional at this time. We also know that really Constitution is about the power of the people, and it has been pointed out several times that at least in the last 12 years, we have had multiple initiatives from the people, and they failed at the ballot. So as an elected official, I sworn to uphold our Constitution. So when we look at the tax structure as a revenue source for our state, what the purpose of the revenue, one must ask. For me, the purpose of a revenue of the state government is to provide support and infrastructure for our people. And to me, I need to bring that back to the reason why we are doing this. And so if we are not coming together and work this out, it's us. It's us who will not benefit from the government that we elected in office. So for that, I believe in capital gain is one of the progressive tax we're looking at and be ready to vote for.
Thank you. Al?
Yeah, I'm definitely against an income tax or a capital gains tax. I'm unmuted. Okay. A capital gains tax is basically a form of an income tax, except it's just against the select people, not against everyone. I'm not sure, but I think the state constitution would allow an income tax, but it has to be equal amongst everyone, a flat tax. Our founders believed that everybody should pay equally, and a flat tax is equal. But still, I could be open to a totally flat tax, similar to what they pretty much had in Pennsylvania back in the 80s when I worked there. But basically, one place we could make it more even is what I saw in Pennsylvania. There was no sales tax on low-priced clothing. Now, if you want to make things a little bit better for people in lower income, I don't know how exactly you'd work it. I assume it's still that way in Pennsylvania. You take the sales tax off of your basic low-priced clothing, just like food is a necessity, low-priced clothing is a necessity.
Okay, thank you. Mylene, would you like to have a 30-second rebuttal?
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to add to the train of thought and the work that's been done as an example for what it could look like as far as progressive taxation. In 2019, we passed progressive REIT, which is very much creating a staircasing of if one sold more than $4 million home, the REIT would be higher in compared to a lower price home. That is one of the attempts that Washington State Legislature want to provide more access and opportunity for people to be homeowner. And that in itself is one of the example of what progressive tax look like. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And next question is on the COVID again. Many experts fear the pandemic will worsen this fall when flu season hits. If scientific evidence warrants it, would you support measures such as requiring masks, prohibiting large gatherings, and/or closing businesses until conditions improve? Mylene, you got the first opportunity, followed by Al.
Yes. I mean, I can expand it, I can BS through it, but honestly, I mean, as you stated in the questions, if research has shown, if study have showed, as a pharmacist who really focuses in public health, I believe that these are the work that not only needed to be done, but it's have shown by many of the country around the globe. When they listen to science, when they follow the recommendation of science. Now, I have to add, science is an art, and we are humble enough to know what we know and to know what we don't know. We continue to thrive, and the purpose is to save lives. The purpose is to make sure that when we come together as one, we do not have to miss anyone at that dinner table of my family, of your family, and that is the goal of this work.
Thank you. Thank you. Al?
I think the likelihood of a huge uptick because the cold weather comes is low. And what that's based on is there was the hope that with the warm weather, the virus would drop in numbers and go away. That didn't happen. So if the warm weather didn't make the virus go away, there's no reason to go thinking the warm weather is going to make it come back. I mean, more people getting together, that could increase the virus. But as far as shutting down, what we need to do is make sure the vulnerable people and anyone who lives with vulnerable people stay isolated. And that means you don't go to a grocery store with a non-N95 mask if you live with somebody that's vulnerable, if you are vulnerable. Because to think that a mask that's not any mask that's not an N95 gives you significant protection is to ignore the fact that this virus is a very small particles, and if you don't have an N95, it does not block out those particles. And if anybody's ever heard of the country of Sweden, we now in this country have about a 5% higher per capita death rate than Sweden, where they never wore masks and they never shut down.
Thank you. Mylene, would you like a 30-second rebuttal?
No, I stand for my original statement.
All right, thank you. Lisa, would you like me to read the question again, or you got it?
I think I've got it. And actually, I think that we are so lucky to have in our country one of the top epidemiologists in the entire world, and Dr. Fauci, who has been talking from the very beginning about the fact that it is a certain kind of virus. We need to wear masks to protect one another. We need to be good to one another. We need to wash our hands frequently, and we need to social distance. In fact, on a call with the White House just a couple of weeks ago, very specifically, the gentleman from the Department of Health said, if we were doing the things we're supposed to be doing in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, we would have cut down the numbers to barely there. And that's the way to do it. And it's so disturbing to me that there are people who believe somehow it's their right as Americans to put other people in danger. We know that what the Department of Health has said. I absolutely believe we have to do it. And we can make a significant difference in our society by taking care of one another.
Thank you. Mike?
Well, instead of talking about it, we actually do something about it. So as a business owner, I've noticed that Dr. Fauci was asked the wrong question. The question he was asked was how to avoid it. The question should have been asked is, what can every industry do to stay open, keep people employed, and reduce the risk? That would have been the right question. He was never asked that. Governor Jay Inslee shut the state down harder than even California did. And it ruined us. And now we got to climb out of that. As a general contractor, I went out there, I set up hand washing stations. We put up hand sanitizer. We did daily checks. We do what we need to do to reduce the impact. Every industry should be left open, yet follow whatever protocol appropriate for that particular industry. The shutdown, that needs to stop now. We can do better, but everybody's got to figure out what they need to do for themselves and remain open, keep these revenues going, and keep people participating, keep this economy moving forward. Thank you.
Lisa, you've got a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, it's just that looking at what British Columbia did, which was for the entire construction industry, everybody got together and decided what the protocols would be that they were willing to step up to do. Unfortunately, I did not see, maybe it happened, I didn't see it, the construction industry in the state of Washington come forward with a plan and say, this is what we will do, how we will do it, and get approval from the Department of Health, which was so our numbers of their COVID exposure has been 1 in the construction industry there. I don't think that that's the case here in the state of Washington, although I'm very glad to hear that Mike was so diligent. That's exactly the kind of thing we want to see.
All right, thank you very much. The next question is on impact of the COVID on schools. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, schools have had to undergo a complete transformation of their educational delivery model and systems. Access to broadband is the greatest shortcoming in carrying out this educational transformation, according to OSPI. Somewhere between 12 and 21% of the children in the state, many in remote locations, lack access to a reliable internet connection. Given the importance of technology, would you support including access to broadband in the definition of basic education for which the state is responsible? The order this time is Mike and Lisa, and then Mike again. Mike.
Hi, yeah, well, I think it's incredibly important that we open our schools and we do it immediately. Once again, industry protocols need to be followed so that children can stay safe, the teachers can stay safe, the administrators, the bus drivers, okay, all the way down the line. It's incredibly important for our children to have the social interaction. From my grandchildren to my business partners, girls in high school, this is having devastating effects to the education to our state. I'd say I calculated losing last quarter's education costs our state $15 billion in lost education. So we've got to get the kids back in school. Now, some protocols like splitting schools and going every other day, morning or afternoon, but getting some interaction and getting up to speed with some tablet stuff. But the tablet online stuff, from what I'm seeing, from people that I know personally. And again, I got half my family are school teachers. It's really not working for us. We got to get the kids back in school. Thank you.
Lisa?
Well, let's focus out. Let's not talk about broadband yet because this is a huge issue. Let's just talk about opening the schools. This morning on a call with about 200 of our school districts, and as you know, it's local control. So they make the decision locally as to whether they will. Many said that they thought that they could start a hybrid system, and they have decided more recently that they're not prepared to do that from both a liability in terms of who would be exposed and also whether they're feeling that it really is safe. All of us want kids in front of teachers. All of us, I think that it is not as good, although we think that education and learning takes place in many different places. So there are many creative, marvelous things that are happening. I think we need to talk more about that. But we do want our kids back in some form of hybrid situation until we have vaccines, until we have contact tracing, until we have certain things in place. We're going to have to live with what we've got and really do the very best we can. Some are doing remarkable things, and it's very exciting to hear those.
Thank you. Mike, would you like to have a 30-second rebuttal?
Yeah, sure. Just real quick. I don't think we need to reinvent a wheel here. We've got 50 states and everybody's stepping up to it. Let's find out what's working. Let's get to it quick and let's implement this. This is our moonshot, but we got to do this moonshot in the next few weeks. All right. Thank you.
All right, Al, would you like me to read the question again?
No, I believe I have.
Okay.
Yeah, U.S. isn't doing that well. We're probably about the 8th worst per capita. There are at least 7 other countries that are worse per capita than the United States. Like I said earlier, we recently exceeded Sweden. Sweden back in July was 30% worse than us per capita. Sweden is now 5% better than us per capita and is almost down to 0 deaths. In Sweden, they never shut down K through 6. Never. And K through 6, the education they get online is terrible compared to high school. You might do a little better, but they're virtually learning nothing. You might as well just close it down, not pay the teachers, and then open it back up when they can go to school, because it's a total waste of money when you're doing at home with the K through 6. And I've talked to a lot of neighborhood parents who have kids that are in K through 6, and that's the way they feel about it. We need to protect the vulnerable population. You're looking to protect kids who are not vulnerable, and if they're living with middle-aged parents, unless they have some severe health problem, they're not very vulnerable. Most of your deaths have come from nursing homes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mylene, we're talking about broadband.
Right, thank you.
I was talking about
I was thinking of bringing us right back to it. So thank you for the reminder. I do appreciate the questions. Part of it, Connie, being as a former school board director, and you in your line of work, you do know the significant importance of, and especially for Washington State, when we wrote what included in basic education. What included in basic education is to provide our students with 21st century education opportunities. And one could argue that certainly being able to access the internet and being able to learn, as Senator Wellman mentioned, anywhere, everywhere, at any opportunities there are for kids to acquire information and master knowledge. My concern in the question, Connie, that do we want to include broadband as part of basic education? I actually want to see broadband as part of the public utilities, just like water, just like electricity, that every household should have access to it. And it should be part of our normal life requirement, because it's not only about our kids' education, it's about the future of our workforce and the future of how we do business.
Thank you. Thank you. Al, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Purposely didn't address broadband because if you open the schools, you don't need the broadband. Basically, what we need to concentrate in schools is not getting kids online and on the internet more. We need to concentrate on actually doing math, science, and doing the work that kids spend enough time online, and I don't see the education system getting better from that, that more actual work in math and science is what they need, not more computers. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is on prison population. Would you support significant and permanent reduction in the prison population as a means of both dealing with the budget deficit and beginning to address the inequality of our justice system? This time it's Lisa, and then Mike, and then Lisa again. You're on mute. You're still on mute.
Okay. So in terms of the prison system, it's a very complex issue. It's a very complex issue, made even more so because of COVID. So we certainly have seen that in our hospital, in our concentrated areas of population, such as prison systems, where there are outbreaks, it becomes really devastating. And so we're talking about, for me, two different things. One is where we can release prisoners earlier, good behavior, various types of prisoners because of the impact to them of COVID, which may be in fact a life sentence or a death sentence, if you will. I think that that's important. But a wholesale just releasing prisoners to save money, I think, is not the way to look at it. Will it make an impact in terms of equity? Yes. One of the things that was pointed out the other day is that we measure crime, but we don't measure justice. One asks why we have certain populations in prison more than others. Why do we have, what leads up to those kinds of things? I think that there's a holistic approach that we have to take from an equity perspective as to why people are in prison and what we can do about that and change that.
Thank you. Mike?
So I think once again, you're dealing with the wrong end of the problem. So what am I doing? What have I done? What has our association done to help reduce that problem? I'm on the Leadership Council of the National Association of Home Builders. We have implemented a program called the Home Builders Institute. We're going into prison populations, trying to get into high schools, but we're having a very difficult time with it. Going into militaries and giving people the training they need to get to the next step in their life. Right now, us home builders, we are short 320,000 people that we need to help build homes. These jobs are six-figure jobs. We are more than happy to go into the prison systems and help these men coming out to see a future and see a career. Actually, I'm dropping the name, but one of our premium members in the Master Builder Association, King County, she and her company has actually sponsored in scores of prisoners through their company organization and put these men on their feet and made productive citizens out of them. We need ideas like that going forward. These are things that people who've lived in this state for many years, who have business experience in this state, these kind of things we do to help people in need. And frankly, it's great for our industry too. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, you've got 30 seconds to rebut.
Oh, it was a major shock to me when I came into the legislature to find out that those who were in charge at the time, the Democrats were a minority party, those who were in charge at the time felt that prison was for punishment. And so although in many states, other states where I've worked, there was a healthy training system and education system to make sure people came out of prison equipped, as Mike was talking about, with job opportunities and skills. That was not the case in Washington the first year that I was in office. It has now changed around, which I'm glad to see, and we are emphasizing training is really key.
Thank you. Mylynn, would you support a significant and permanent reduction in prison population as a means of both dealing with the budget deficit and beginning to address inequality of our justice system?
Well, thank you, Connie. First, I'd like to acknowledge my seatmate, Representative Tana Sands, is in the room. To answer that question, I think I am going to echo what Senator Wellman have said, I think we continue to, for the lack of a better word, simplify some of the very complex system that we have. And for me, we are functioning and we have been building this kind of system based on a institutionalized racist system that create as a foundation that we built on. So what I've seen in the 2 years I served in Olympia is that we continuously values our legislations, values the policy that we put forward that impact people's lives only on what does it cost, instead of on how does it impact people's lives. What other quality do we measure? And I would love to share with you what my work on to address that issue.
Thank you. Al?
Releasing prisoners just to save money is a bad idea. You maybe look to reduce the costs of the prisons, but that's not a good idea to just release people because you don't have the money to keep them there. And the idea that currently our system is systematically racist is incorrect. And the study that claims that is correct. It shows that African Americans in a lifetime are killed by police at 2.5 times the rate of their white counterparts. And I totally agree with that. But what they forget to mention in the study is Asian Americans are killed at a ratio of 0.37 times the white population, which is whites are killed 2.5 times Asians because Asian Americans commit way under half the crime of white Americans. It's crime and resisting arrest that gets you killed by the police. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mylene, you've got 30 seconds to rebut.
Yes, so the legislation that I'm working on is for every fiscal note that accompany a legislative proposal in the legislature. It needed to be parallel with an equity impact statement. This would hopefully balance out the current system that we're having and really put people's lives and the values of people's lives on the table when we negotiate these legislations. Thank you.
Thank you. Our country is so divided. Can you give us an example of something you've accomplished while working with an individual or group with whom you've had significant differences? Mylene, you get to start this time and then followed by Al.
Absolutely. I think in the realm of public service, meeting with people who have different opinions and point of view is absolutely significant. In my personal life, I have a group of friends, I would call them my critical friends, who would help me see the other side of the issues and pull me into more of a center of seeing things. While I'm serving as a representative in Olympia, I have met with numerous constituents who came down in oppositions of vaccines, in oppositions of abortions as an issue, and in oppositions of Initiative 1000. I think the conversations would be really rich when we truly being an active listener and hear the other side, because that is about an individual lived experience, which really frame their mindset and how they would advocate for an issue. And that certainly is my honor to continue doing that work.
Thank you. Al? I think you're muted, Al.
I'm always willing to discuss any topic with anyone. I don't like it when somebody just throws the word science out or data or the scientists say. I actually like to talk about actual data with someone when we talk about it. And in fact, Mylene brings up the topic of abortion. I'm for abortion being legal, but never in the 3rd trimester, because I know of kids that were born 2 months premature that are totally normal. And in a 3rd trimester abortion, I just can't take the idea of a doctor reaching in and breaking the kid's neck and then taking the kid out and saying, look at that, the fetus is out. And that's basically what they have to do in 3rd trimester. So I do believe people that are very anti-abortion should try to compromise and say, you know, we can have abortion, But let's not kill kids in the third trimester. And that's exactly what it is in the third trimester. It's a murder. Thank you.
Mylene, would you like to have a 30-second rebuttal?
Yes, I like to really underscore the word lived experience. When you share your lived experience, that is truly the conversation that we should have, because those are what it meant by speaking your truth. And when that happens, it's really contribute to the conversations of making significant change that impacts people's lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa, can you give us an example of something you've accomplished while working with an individual or group with whom you've had significant differences?
Well, one of the most important bills that I was able to sponsor and bring forward was the Keep Washington Working bill, which was about immigrants' role in the workplace. 1 in 7 Washingtonians is an immigrant, and many, many more are the first generation born of immigrants. And they play a vital role in almost every aspect of the economy. I had over 120 organizations of all kinds supporting this bill, but it took me 3 years to get it through, and I had to work very closely with WASPIC, which is the Association of Police Chiefs and Sheriffs. And this is a bill about working with ICE or not working with ICE in this particular case, not sharing information unduly with ICE so that they can pick up people and make the quota for the detention center. Things were happening that were very destructive to our state and to our state economy. And because of that, I had to work closely with police. It was really, we came to an agreement. They supported the bill, and we were able to move something forward. I was very proud of that.
Thank you. Mike? You're muted. Mike, you're muted. Mike is muted.
Okay, down there. Okay, there we go. Yeah, well, and like you write a little bit on Lisa here, in the late 80s, we're having a heck of a time with all these California immigrants coming into the state of Washington. So I was appointed to a board, a commission called, nothing personal, hear me out, it was quite controversial. I was the only builder on this commission developed in the city of Kirkland in response to our state's Growth Management Act as passed in 1990. Talk about a lot of different interests at play at that point in time. In 1995, I had the opportunity to co-author the City of Kirkland's comp plan, and we called it our 2020 plan. Okay, guess what says on the calendar here? So now I've had that opportunity to be able to put together a program, lots of different thoughts coming together. I think the saddest thing I'm seeing today, though, is the Seattle Times. It's really unfortunate to watch the Seattle Times endorse 98% of the candidates, Democrats, shutting the Republicans out entirely. My campaign, I talk about crew, and I got a pair of cross sweeps on my side. Those are oars. And I like to tell a lot of people that in the state of Washington, we've got a lot of people on the left-hand side of the boat. We need a few on the right-hand side of the boat so the boat can go straight. And I know a little bit about getting a boat to go straight. So anyhow, that's my 2 bits
Thank
on
you.
how we can work together better.
Lisa, you've got 30 seconds for rebuttal. And you're muted.
I just would say, Mike, I sat with the Seattle Times today for an hour waiting for you to show up, and you just didn't make it. So maybe that's one of the reasons why maybe they're endorsing people who do show up.
Okay. For the last round, each candidate will ask their opponent a question. Lisa, will you please begin by asking Mike a question? And these are a minute. Is that right? Minute responses? Go for it.
Okay. So Mike, one of the major issues we have right now is with childcare, with school being closed, and of course, for safety's sake, that's the way it's going to be, either that way or hybrid. We have we lost half of our childcare centers. It's really important for people going back to work to be able to have their children somewhere. It's a complex issue. What are your suggestions and ideas around that?
Yeah, and I'm feeling that Now you can hear me, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm feeling it. My own daughter's upper level designer for Nike down in Oregon, and her husband is pretty busy in video, and so I got grandkids we're dealing with right now with Cara trying to work and so on, and you know, she's probably a little more fortunate group. You know, one aspect is we got to tick away at this problem, and one aspect that I've been after pretty large is deadbeat dads. Okay, I was raised for a while with a single mom, and if we had a better e-verify system amongst employers, we could pin down some of the deadbeat dads out there. Right now, if you're an employer, and I've had 47 people on my payroll at one point in time, you go months without seeing a garnish of wages come forward. I'm not saying that's the answer, but is an answer to get the deadbeat dads to step up and contribute far more than they are right now in raising these children that they brought in the world.
Good. Thank you. Mike, it's your turn now to ask Lisa a question.
So, Lisa, you know, I was pretty disappointed earlier this year when I asked all the legislatures, what are they doing to have their own personal residents get to a carbon zero footprint, considering when somebody like myself, I run a vehicle out here in my house, runs 30% cleaner CO2 reduction. I built the very first built green homes in the state's history. I built the very first LEED certified office building in state history. Yet I see that none of our state legislatures are stepping up and committing to meet a build green standard that y'all are imposing on my industry. So I would like to hear right now, what is your commitment to do in the next 12 months? We're at the end of this year, the next 12 months for your home to meet the standards that you're trying to impose on the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. And it does sound, yes, I'm not, okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Yes, it does sound a little like you're drumming up business, but that's okay because I would welcome you to come to the house and give me some more ideas of what
Free.
Right now, all of my appliances are as green as they can be, and I have natural gas, of course. We're also a certified wildlife sanctuary, and we have put a significant amount of bamboo, tree bamboo, around our house. Tree bamboo sequesters carbon, you know, more quickly than, you know, almost any other types of plants. And so to some extent, we're trying hard to do that. I don't know what else I could be doing, but I'm open to your suggestions. I know you were at the W College and asked that question. So come on over. You'll tell me what I can do and can afford to do.
All right.
All right, great. Thank you. Mylene, what's your question for Al? We lost you.
Oh.
There you go.
I think I pushed the wrong button.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, Al, my question for you is, do you support the idea that those of us who benefit from the sweat of working families should pay higher in tax in order to support the infrastructure of our state?
Oops, Al, you're on mute. There you go.
You actually have it wrong there. The very well-to-do are the ones that pay the very large amount of taxes that support the infrastructure. The poor are not paying the large amount of taxes. Maybe if you compare the sales tax they pay to their total income versus the sales tax that a wealthy person pays compared to their total income, the total taxes paid by the rich are many, many times more than what are paid by the poor. So the infrastructure is being paid by the people who are successful and rich. And when you talk to me about the poor, I come from a father who was the poorest, one of the poorest families in Valley Stream, New York, 20 miles from Manhattan. He had no electricity until he was 12 years old, no water until he moved out and put electricity in their house. He worked as a sheetrocker. You probably don't know what a sheetrocker is, but it's a construction trade. He made extremely good money years ago, which you cannot do doing that anymore, because the supply of workers doing it has gone up so much that the wages you make now as a sheetrocker are terrible compared to what they were then because of supply and demand, too many workers doing that work.
Okay, Al, what's your question for Mylene?
Sure. What I'm curious as to is, Why do you want control of sex education for K to 12 given to the state instead of school districts, where parents will have more of a voice? Sex education is not an exact science like other very important things that children need to learn in school that are not going to be taught at home. Do you think the state cares more about kids than the parents? That's it.
Thank you for the question. I'm sitting here looking at Senator Wellman. She probably is really upset that that question was given to me instead to her. It's an insider joke. Sorry, Lisa. I'm gonna try to answer this question and help me correct me if I'm wrong. First of all, it's not sex education. It's sexual health education. Secondly, I'm curious if you read the bill, Al. The bill does not dictate what the school district would teach. The bill tells the school district that there are different curriculums that are available, and you have all of the power to choose which one to provide for the learning. And then to your point, whether states care about kids more than parents, of course the parents care about kids more. I love my kids, and I just happen to love a lot of kids, 1.2 million in the state for now. I believe that parents care about their kids more, and that is why parents have all the right to, one, look at the curriculum, two, the school district is required to tell the parent, required to inform the parent, and the parent have all the right to opt their kids out from their learning. So I would hope that before you oppose sexual health education, please help us out and be an informed citizen. Read the bill.
Thank you. Thank you. We're way over time. In closing remarks, each candidate now has 1 minute for closing remarks. We started this evening with Mike, so let's go backwards, starting with Mylin, and then Al, and Tana's not here, right? She's not. Is she there?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't see you.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. If you would like to, you can weigh in here, and then Lisa, and then Mike. So Mylin. Oh, there you are. There you are.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to, like I said at the beginning, to speak to the citizen of Issaquah. And I'm hoping that more people would have access to this video so that they get to learn about their candidate and really honor us with their vote. I was being honored by the 41st voter 2 years ago, when they gifted me the opportunity to serve as their state representative. As I share, I did not set out to become a politician. I set out as a community volunteer. I wanted to make our world better, not only for us, but for our children. While serving in the state in the last 2 years, I have seen how my voice, how my lived experience, how my true story have changed the way legislature worked. And I believe that I will continue to put in that effort to make our place, Washington State as a whole, but 41st Legislative District, individually a better place for all of us. Thank you for the opportunity, and please vote me, Lynn Tai.
Al, I think you're on mute.
Okay. Lots been talked about diversity here. And I actually live a diverse life. You might think I'm blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy, but I'm married to a full-blooded Arab. She's mostly Egyptian, a little bit of Palestinian. So I do live diversity, not just talk about it. And one of the things that I remember about my wife's story is that when wanting to get out of Egypt because of death threats to her father from the Brotherhood, they were thinking about either France or the United States. Her mother wanted to go to France because she spoke French fluently. But her father wanted to come to the United States because he knew it was better for opportunity. He knew the freedoms here and the success here was much better than in France. And so basically, my wife is a testament to why the United States is not a racist place that people are making it out to be. The United States is a place where you can succeed whatever race you are, and that's why they came here. I mean, she's a testament to America is not great because it's diverse. America is great because everybody wants to come here. America is where everyone wants to come, and that's why it's diverse.
Thank you. Tana, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be with everybody from Issaquah. My name is Tana Sen, and I'm state representative from the 41st, and I'm blessed to be running unopposed this election season. I have been working my whole career as a legislator to help working families and busy families. And that has meant making sure that we are fully funding schools. That means helping to reduce traffic congestion so you could get home to the dining room table. That's currently meaning working really hard to make sure that we are addressing childcare. Thank you, Lisa, for bringing that issue up. We're making sure people have access to health care, are safe from gun violence, have access to the mental health services they need, whether they're in school, at home, or in the doctor's office. All of those components are really about the quality of life that is critical for the citizens of the 41st District and across our state. And of course, what we need to make sure that we're doing now as well is address climate change and make sure that we combat this pandemic. So I am honored to chair the Human Services and Early Learning Committee in the legislature, as well as serve on the Budget Committee, both of which will have fundamental roles when we get back to Olympia in January. Again, to deal with our budget shortfalls given COVID, to address racial equity questions and issues around foster care and juvenile justice and child care and our safety net. And I look forward to doing that with my colleagues, Senator Wellman and Rep. Tai, who have been amazing servants for our community. I'm proud to represent Issaquah and the rest of the 41st District and to really help promote women's equality as well. That's something that's I'm very passionate about and close to my heart. And bringing the listening, the respect, the grace, and to politics, I think is something that we can't overstate right now, how important it is to be listening, to be working together, and to working for the betterment of our entire communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa. Whoops, you're muted.
Good, there I am. Thank you so much. It is an honor to be with you this evening, and it has been an honor for the last 4 years, really more than an honor, a blessing to be able to make a difference for people across the state and especially for the 41st Legislative. As chair of early learning K-12 education, I have taken not only my degree in education and psychology and my experience as a kindergarten teacher, but also my 35 years in tech, and put that together to hopefully work with our school system, which is one of the most complicated systems that I've ever had occasion to come up with. I would never have created this as the CEO, but nevertheless, we want a system that works for all of our kids and gives our kids a healthy start moving into a 21st century economy, which is a digital economy. It's not the same thing as it has been. So I feel very fortunate to be in a position to do that. You know, you use everything that you've learned along the way. I've learned the fact that I was 7 years with Cal Poly, working at Cal Poly, working on mastery-based education here in Career Connect, Washington, all the things we're doing to get our kids, each and every one of them, into the 21st century in a healthy, meaningful, positive way.
Thank you, Lisa.
I continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike? Whoops, you're on mute. You're on mute, Mike. You're on mute. There you go.
There we go. All right. All right. You know what? At a recent forum, I was struck by a fact. And that is all the East Side legislatures, except for Larry Springer, are not from here. And it strikes me funny, especially when you're a multi-generational family such as myself, that I don't think one of y'all have been here for over 30 years. And this comes from the perspective of somebody whose family not only built the state, I literally built the 41st. Okay, I have built a home or subdivision or office building in every single city in the 41st. I also developed a growth plan that has stood the test of time at 25 years. I don't see how you can figure out where you're going if you don't know where you came from. When I was a kid, you couldn't swim in Lake Washington. And we don't wait for the feds to clean that up. The people in the state of Washington put together a forward thrust program, and we cleaned up our own lake. And so going forward, I want to take this build opportunity and continue to make this state the reason why y'all moved here and make it great for our children. All right. I'm struck with the fact that in 1976, first house I built in Mercer Island had 6 building inspections. We didn't talk about this. A house I permitted in the city of Bellevue in 2015 had 46 inspections. Now, that's an issue we haven't even touched upon, about how we can do a better job spending our money and continue to make this a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anne, take it away.
Thank you, candidates, for participating in this event. Your service is much appreciated. The Cable TV Commission and staff have recorded tonight's forum and will replay it every day until the November 3rd election on Issaquah City Channel 21. You can also watch this event anytime on the YouTube channel for the City of Issaquah. Let's type that in, City of Issaquah. Please tell your friends to tune in so they too can become more informed voters. Audience, thank you for tuning in. We'll now take a 15-minute break and prepare to meet the candidates for the 5th Legislative District.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.